Hey, Jay. Hey, you need to use the toilet, honey? Go ahead.
I promise Michael Cera getting head and having his butt crack out in the open has everything to do with Rihanna. It will all make sense, I promise. I know you have trust issues, but I won't deceive like they did, whomever that might have been. Fuck them. I'm an honest person, for the most part. This film, by the way, is one of 2 movies in her filmography that didn't go triple copper. I wish that last line was me being dramatic. It's not. Trust me. It's been over 3,650 days and Rihanna still has a bad box. Her box is getting worse and worse and people don't seem to want to talk about it. There seems to be no change. Her box is still broken. The real question is, can she fix it? The answer might shock you. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
Over the years, Rihanna has become more and more famous. As her name got bigger and bigger, she has faced one of the biggest scrutinies, being that she can't sing. I know how ironic people are questioning Rihanna's pipes, even though those pipes helped her make millions. She's widely known for her MP3s, but today I'll be talking about the MP4s she's appeared in. In today's video, I'll be going over the Rihanna box office curse. This has been a thing since 2012. The same year the Mayans said the world is coming to an end, the only thing that ended was the potential of Rihanna starring in a movie that doesn't flop. That was a bit harsh, but I mean the track record speaks for itself, so cut me some slack. This movie even had Jesse Plemons, but even with him on the roster, it failed to captivate Americans and everyone else around the world. Jesse is known for ironically being a good luck charm in almost everything he's in, from Breaking Bad to Black Mirror. However, throughout this 2-hour runtime, him and his co-star failed to let their names carry any weight. Most movies that are inspired by toys or a video game end up doing severely badly. Look at Transformers, a franchise that has way too many sequels, prequels and spin-offs, to the point where it's now become a meme. If you're able to get Liza Koshy to be in your film, I don't think I can ever look at it the same ever again. Battleship came out in 2012. This has to be one of the worst films in history. Let me break it down. There's this lowlife called Hopper. He ends up joining the Navy and he likes this girl. Every beaten act of this film plays out exactly as you would expect. Hopper is a pushover with a lot of internal turmoil. His crush's dad doesn't mess with him because he thinks he's good for nothing and he lacks any drive and he's a hothead. It's the typical story about a protagonist who wants to prove a point to someone who in all honesty isn't worthy of proving anything to. Rihanna has more screen time in this movie compared to almost everything else she'd be in later down the line. I think her wanting to be in this film has something to do with the fact that in high school she served time for the army, plus this film came out a year after Talk That Talk and 3 years after Rated R. So she was probably feeling really ballsy during this time period, because during that era she was a little bit unhinged and unorthodox to say the least. She had too much screen time for my liking, and it wasn't screen time that pushed the narrative forward. It was just to be like, hey guys, that's Riri. Like, do you see her? There she is. Yeah, that's the woman from Barbados with the prominent forehead. Yup, there she is in her glory. Yeah, yes, the lady with the captivating accent. The cold opening of this movie is the main character trying to get a sandwich for his crush even though he just met her. Like he's a simp. This wouldn't be the last time Riri is in a film about the main character being a loser. This seems to be a trend for whatever reason, as in one of the most horrific films she was in down the line was based around a man who looks like the now disgraced YouTuber I'm Alex, but I'll touch on that film in a few. You know, when I think about it, I feel like she was in Battleship just to be close to Jesse. Let me tell you why. So it's pretty common knowledge that Rihanna is a huge fan of Aaron Paul, Jesse from Breaking Bad. He even once said that she ran and jumped on him one time when she met him. So my theory is that this is just a scheme to get close to Plemons, befriend him, and ultimately ask for him to help her get a cameo in Breaking Bad. That's just a conspiracy theory, but I think I'm far from wrong. But then again, I'm never wrong. Musicals used to be a huge thing, the most popular one being High School Musical. That was the last time I really ever thought of the genre, until Annie came around. The film is about a self-absorbed politician trying to win the hearts of the common folk. The only problem is he has too much of a Zuckerberg factor. That being, people don't really see him as human, and they have the right to think oddly of him because he always behaves in a condescending manner. Until he bumps into Annie, a foster child who ends up staying with him. The only problem is that he's using her as a marketing tool to make it seem as though he isn't a prick. She's the holy grail for his campaign. Rihanna plays Moonshine. She has a cameo for like 45 seconds or so. She basically had 2 lines in this film. Were her lines so memorable or phenomenal that they needed to be mentioned? Well, no. But she did deliver them in a movie, so there's that. Critics gave this film scathing reviews. It's a cliche family film. It's meant for kids and people who have actual loving parents. So no wonder film critics took a huge dump on this one. They're bitter and sad. I've always wondered why film critics pile on movies they dislike, but they themselves can't even make a short film. I liked it, and that's all that really matters. You'll find some 45-year-old write a 2-page document about why the substance has no substance, but all he's ever accomplished his entire life is having a closet full of trench coats and fedoras. Now he thinks he's something special, like lighten up. It's not that serious. Cameron Diaz plays the role of the kid's de facto foster mom who's deprived of dick. She's also a mean hag in this film. I think her sour attitude is due to her not getting laid whenever she wants. Oh well, welcome to the party.
Say cheese, baby.
This Is the End is a film that has Seth Rogen. I think that's all I need to say about it. If you have anything with Hollywood's most non-serious Jewish guy, I think you already know that you're in for a wacky adventure. Sometimes it ends up being comical, sometimes the weakness of the writing in itself is a joke of its own. It all depends on how many blunts Seth smoked when he was writing the script. This is a guy who once made an entire movie about brokies trying to do OF content before OnlyFriends was a thing, and you know what I mean by OnlyFriends. Rihanna is in it. I don't really know how this link up happened. Okay, actually it does make sense. Her personality back then in Persona was questionable at times. Plus, I've seen enough interviews to come to realize in some ways she has the personality of Seth Rogen, Adam Sandler, and Angelina all infused in one. How was her box during this film? Well, let me put it like this. Rihanna is playing a character of herself. Everyone in this film is playing themselves. This movie has Seth Rogen in almost every prominent name in Hollywood who plays fictional people for a living. James Franco plays himself, Jonah Hill plays himself, Michael Cera plays himself, Rihanna plays herself. She cheated. How am I supposed to judge your acting ability when you're playing yourself? That's cheating. Cheaters never prosper. That's why, spoiler alert, she dies in the first 30 minutes of this movie. If you want to see a 23-year-old Emma Watson defend herself from getting raped, I suggest you check out this film. Okay, that got dark pretty quickly. That last sentence sounds extremely messed up with no context, but I'm talking about a movie made by the only person in Hollywood who can outsmoke Snoop Dogg, so it's not as bizarre as you might think. This is the only movie that actually did pretty well. I said Rihanna flops every time she's on the big screen. Well, guess what? There are exceptions to every rule. Deal with it. 2015 was an interesting year for DreamWorks. There was this movie that involved the color purple, creatures called the Boov. Yes, Boov. Now Rihanna basically was voicing herself. Not literally, but a character was basically supposed to be Riri as a kid. There was no range in her delivery. She sounded too much like herself. That's not a bad thing. I like Riri's talking voice. Her Barbados accent is unique, but the problem is when you get cast for being you. A modern day example of this is Awkwafina. Awkwafina always gets typecast as this loud, obnoxious character with a hoarse voice. This wouldn't be the last time you hear that name, so 3 years down the line, this Asian lady from NYC would be in a movie with Rihanna. To be fair, Awkwafina was completely terrible in that movie. I like her, she's just so interesting to me. But I didn't really like her in Crazy Rich Asians. Anyways, this video isn't about the lady who got famous for making a song about her private parts. That song has over 8 million views on YouTube, by the way. Man, I love the internet. The 2015 movie I'm talking about is called Home. This film was bad. It was objectively bad for a number of reasons, but the main reason being that the plot was poorly paced and pretty predictable, whilst also being extremely lackluster. Plus, Jim Parsons voiced the main character. At this point, I can't tell if that's a good or bad thing. I'll leave that up to you. The ending was kinda rushed and J-Lo was in it. The only saving grace was Steve Martin being in this motion picture. This film was another case of a star-studded cast that was used as the selling point for the movie, but there was nothing of substance, kinda like when Angry Birds hit the big screen, a clear cash grab. If you close your eyes, all you hear is Rihanna, and the fact that the character shares one too many parallels to her real upbringing is somewhat lazy and uninspired. And no, that's not just me being an asshole. Or maybe it is. She has lines in this film referring to her childhood and blase blase blah. You can tell the writers wrote this character for Rihanna and only Rihanna, which is fine. The problem is when you make something so obvious, to the point where you think the meta references are cheeky and will slide with the audience, but they just end up coming across as bland. It's on the same level of how Family Guy tries to make controversial jokes on current things in pop culture just to elicit a response from the audience, but they've been using that lowbrow gimmick for so long that you end up rolling your eyes and becoming desensitized every time a new one happens. You just sit there like, damn, we're still doing this? Like we're really doing this after a decade. Seth MacFarlane, you're still making these jokes. Seth, do something else, you Jew. It's like the equivalent of putting The Rock in films where he's this brute who always wears shirts that hug his sleeves, and to make it worse in those roles, he has no range. That's why I'll forever die on the hill that Tooth Fairy was his best role, even though Rotten Tomatoes gave it 18%. Then 2017 came around. This is probably her worst casting ever. This movie is known for being notoriously bad. Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets, don't even get me started. What do you get when you put a supermodel in someone who was once in a Spider-Man film? You get Valerian in the City. Yeah, I'm not saying this title every single time. I'll call it knockoff Star Wars. This movie has Cara Delevingne. That's all you need to know. The plot is basically Star Trek meets Star Wars from a funny Chinese website that I'm not gonna name, and then insert any stereotypical storyline about a futuristic galaxy written by a middle schooler for their English class. And just to make things worse, let's just say they wrote this essay 12 hours before the due date. That's this movie. Hence I dubbed it as the knockoff Star Wars. At least George Lucas made something memorable. Valerian just ended up being infamous for being dog shit. Bad chemistry between characters, worst of all between the main ones. The main lead is this guy who thinks he's a womanizer but he's not. He somehow managed to pull her, but nobody really understands how. She kinda likes him but she tries to play it off as though she doesn't. It's a mess, just like the plot. It's a bad case of will they, won't they. What's weird is that these characters are colleagues, so the whole time I was thinking that this is just some social commentary about how you shouldn't date at the office. Out of 10, it's a solid -4. It's aight. No, I'm kidding, it's atrocious. This film made me realize why you hardly see Cara Delevingne on the big screen. Every time I see her, I think of the time she exposed Justin Bieber. Y'all remember that? Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. This movie is the perfect example of what happens when you use most of the budget on CGI. The CGI is alright, I guess. Rihanna plays a character called Bubble. She works in a nightclub and she's a shapeshifter. The best scene in this entire movie is her pole dancing. I think that's the only scene everyone likes for obvious reasons. It's Riri putting on a seductive performance for 2 minutes straight. I can't complain about that. Throughout this film, she tries to put on a cute voice, but it's just bad. It's way better than whatever she was doing in Battleship.
Got it, sir. On my camera.
What is it?
I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There is a 5-year difference between these two after all, so at least she took more acting classes or whatever. She doesn't have the chops of someone who graduated from Juilliard, but she's trying, so I'll give her a B for effort. You'd expect there to be growth. At least with knockoff Star Wars, you can tell she had fun. Me seeing her performance in this movie just reminded me that when an actor can sing and act, that they're really talented. For example, Zendaya. I know that may be seen as controversial to some of you, but she is a good actor. Or Jennifer Lopez, she's beyond decent. I've been negative for a while, but this next film is about to receive nothing but positive reviews from me. I'm not a middle-aged man having a midlife crisis who posts a literal thesis just dumping their personal anger and claiming that they're venting about a film. Those guys stink. But you know what doesn't stink?
You know your footprint is a disaster, right?
Sorry, what?
Your footprint?
See, now this is how you play a character that shares a lot of similarities with your personality. 9ball is perfect for Rihanna. Even though she didn't say as much either in this film, I felt like she was actually contributing to the story. She's a hacker in this film. It's a way more believable role than when she was just eye candy in the film that came out a year prior. Her role as Bubble was basically her poured up music video in space for like 20 minutes. Bands make your girl go down. Okay. I can't sing. Fuck. Now this is just awkward. Oh well. 9balls is witty, she's cutthroat, and she smokes a lot of pot. She's even got the whole aesthetic and everything. I might have to add this fit to my Pinterest board. This fit is so tough. See what I mean there? That's on brand with Rihanna. It's a nice touch. It doesn't seem left field, plus ironically her speaking less weighed more. I said that already, but I had to say it twice because this was her best performance in years. Matter of fact, out of all the movies she's been in up until the release of this YouTube video, Ocean's 8 is the one. She did her thing here, creme de la creme or whatever the French say. This movie has its own faults, like her character is supposed to be this pristine hacker, but she does the cliche things hackers do in movies. All that was missing was her monitor displaying green lines scrolling vertically down the screen and her talking about mainframes. Like there's a scene where she has to log into Facebook and find information on this one guy. She just presses a single key and bloop! All the information she needs magically appears. But I get it, Rihanna's playing 9ball, so people are more enamored with her being on the screen than the accuracy of her being a black hat hacker. A huge complaint about this movie is that it's one huge celebrity orgy. That's not me bending the truth either. Kylie Jenner is in this movie. Designer is in this movie. The carpool karaoke host is in this movie. Let me repeat that one more time. Kylie Jenner is in this movie. Did you not hear me? Kylie Jenner. Guava Island. Yes. Donald Glover. Musical. Yes. Rihanna's a factory worker stitching clothes on an island and she's pregnant. But newsflash, her significant other doesn't know she has a bun in the oven. Oh no! Newsflash number 2, he's been singing songs to her since they were kids. He's got amazing pipes and clearly she likes his other one. That's how she got pregnant in the first place. Okay, but in all seriousness, this was a very strong emotional performance. Maybe it's because Donald Glover and Letitia Wright are her co-stars, so she had no choice but to pull up her socks. Like, this is black excellence right here. You can't be fooling around on set. This movie is a musical, by the way, and no, she doesn't sing in this film. No, like seriously, if you're expecting that, then you're dead wrong. Smurfs. I saw the trailer for Smurfs. I like Rihanna, but considering that the Smurfs franchise has had the worst luck when it comes to ever doing well at the box office, my expectations are low. Plus, this isn't one of those characters where you want the voice to sound like Rihanna, if you get what I mean. Riri gets cast for being herself. That's okay, but when it comes to certain characters, you're just doing everyone a disservice. Y'all saw the outrage when the world found out that Zendaya is voicing Shrek's daughter. Personally, I get it, Zoe sounds like herself. She can't really perform any vocal acrobatics to voice a certain character. She's a good actress, don't get me wrong, but I don't think she's the best VA. Acting on screen is completely different to being behind the camera and letting your vocals do all the performing. For example, someone who is great at being a VA is Mark Hamill. He doesn't sound like himself because he actually honed in on the craft for like decades. You can't just put a famous name in your movie because you want tickets to sell. Nowadays, it seems as though filmmakers and producers want names to make movies, but at the end of the day, stories told through great performances are what sell out cinemas and make an impact. But clearly, it seems as though most producers aren't willing to take a risk, so they hire popular names, and ironically, sometimes those heavyweights cause their feature films to sink, just like the Titanic.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, consider watching one of the 2 on your screen right now. And don't forget, villains tell the best story.